But when you look at the world today, David, there's people like you and many others in the scientific and other communities who are really driven by respect for science, respect for knowledge. There are many others, and including people in power, who are not. And it can seem that we may forget the importance of our knowledge and ignore it and let go or blow up or destroy much of the preciousness of what we've built. Is that a lens that you have? What are you most concerned about as you look out at the world right now?
Well, I think it has always been true since the Renaissance, since the scientific revolution, wherever you count the beginning of our Enlightenment to be. It's always been true that most people haven't appreciated it. Most people have values that kind of contradict it. Most people resent it a bit. So it has survived by being stable in its own terms. And when you start referring to the political side of it, there the equivalent of the scientific revolution is liberal democracy, or whatever you want to call the values that underlie the Western political system. And this does seem, especially the Anglosphere part of it, does seem to be incredibly stable. If you look at the early to mid 20th century, the age of the great dictators, totalitarian ideologies were sweeping the world. All the intellectuals in the world were either fascists or communists. Well, I'm exaggerating, but many of them were. And in many countries, fascists and communists took over the government and caused all sorts of damage. And if they had won, they could easily have ended civilization. But I think it's extremely significant that not one of the Anglosphere countries fell to a dictatorship.
And when you say that democracy is the kind of the political equivalent of the scientific
Liberal
revolution,
democracy, yes.
liberal democracy is.
Yes.
I guess the key point you're making there is that you could think of a democracy, a liberal democracy, as an error-correcting system. That is actually the most fundamental way to think of it. It's not that
that's
automatically
exactly what it is. Yeah.
It doesn't automatically create good. What it does is it eventually weeds out the bad. And so if you imagine human endeavor generally as this sort of 1,000 flowers flourishing and trying to grow in different directions, when some of them start to grow in the wrong direction, a democratic system will rein that in and say, sorry, you've had your turn, you're out, let's put someone else in and try and grow differently.
Yes, peacefully. That's the thing, because if it's not done peacefully, then knowledge is destroyed in the war or in the civil war or whatever, or in the coup that overturns the previous regime. The political tradition is judged by whether it can remove bad policies and bad leaders peacefully.